We're disappointed in the unacceptable chanting that came from a group of supporters at this evening's match. That behavior does not reflect who we are as a club or the values we stand for. The use of derogatory language at our matches is completely unacceptable and will not be tolerated. Chicago Fire FC is committed to fostering an environment where everyone, players, staff, fans, feel safe and welcome. So that was the statement. Adding some context to it, I think that it's not who we are. It's not who we've been all year. We want the type of environment where people love coming to the stadium, love celebrating the game of soccer, and that chant has nothing to do with the game of soccer. Really disappointed that it continued throughout the match, and I'll leave it at that.
We'll start with YoDeportes.
Gregg, just in terms of handling what the game started with, what happened with Chris Brady? I think on the broadcast they mentioned he was hurt in training yesterday, and how do you think that just affected the beginning of the game?
It's just like we had a very clear game plan coming out when we went to Philly, they had a very clear game plan also. They wanted to pin us in our half. And it was difficult. It was complicated. A lot of second balls, a lot of challenges, a lot of duels. But it's fine. That's part of the game. I felt that the first goal it doesn't need to happen. And I think that's what's a little bit disappointing. I think that when you look at the goals we conceded in the first half in particular, or the goals we conceded, it's in a playoff game. You need to defend much better than that. You need to, you can't make those mistakes if you want a chance to win.
Chris got hurt in training yesterday.
He did. Yep.
And just to follow up on that a little bit, Tim Hotzeman of Red 97. When was Jeff Gall informed that he would be starting, if you don't mind me asking?
Last night.
Alex Calabrese, MLSsoccer.com. Coach, to stick with the goalkeepers a little bit, you did make the big decision to make Jeff the number 2 after 2 seasons as a number 3 goalie in MLS. What's your messaging to him now, knowing that this was a very big stage for him on such short notice?
It happens to everybody. Mistakes are part of the game of soccer, and we're going to have to support Jeff. The team's going to have to support him. The staff's going to have to support him. He hadn't played in a while. He lacked some rhythm. But, that's the situation that we're in. And, he's come through for the team before. He's won games before in this league. And, today was an unfortunate game for him.
Jim Alex, Sounds Real Talker. Coach, do you feel like your team was mentally in this game from the start? Because it seemed to, going back to the last game with the red card and whatnot, do you think that maybe carried over to this game, that some guys were just, it was a dirty game on both ends. There was just a lot of flopping and falling, but did you think the mentality sort of carried over? Did you expect this sort of thing that from the start it was just not there in a sense?
I mean, I think there was a certain something missing, for sure in the beginning, but it's also, a case of needing to weather the storm in some sense. That's the best team in the league throughout the course of the season, and they put us under some pressure early. And I think when you start looking at the outcomes and you say, okay, you gave up 3 goals, there was something missing. But I think that, it wasn't, to me, it wasn't that severe. I think we weren't completely in the game. We weren't completely dominant where we'd like to be at home at all, but it wasn't something where we should have been down 3-0.
Hey Coach, Tomas Moran, 98.3 FM The Life. Looking back upon your first season as the Chicago Fire coach, of course it didn't end the way you wished it to, but looking at the steps that were taken, what's your message to the team broadly overall over this season and looking into next season?
The message after the game was we've made progress. I thank them for all their effort and hard work throughout the course of the season. And then, remember this feeling that we have right now, because it stinks. We all have a very bitter taste in our mouths about the performance, about how we're exiting, and that we should use that as motivation. And next year we have to come back stronger. whatever we did this year, we have to look to improve on, and that's how it goes in this business. So, I think we use this as motivation to go on and reach new heights.
Coach Liz Jimenez, congratulations. I mean, I think this is a bad game, but if we do the balance from the season, I think that is not bad at all, and I would like to hear your opinion regarding this team to build up for next season. They say that you learn more when you have a loss, and how you consider that for your team looking forward for the 2026.
A lot of these players, this was their first playoff experience, and coming to terms with the mentality that you need in these moments throughout these weeks. If you think about New England, then you play Orlando, then you play Philly, and then you play Philly again. Like, you need the mentality every moment. And it's not one game you need 70%, next game you need 80%. You need 100% mentality in these moments. And I think the group's going to learn from it. I agree that the team's made progress, and there is a lot to be proud of, but we're also really disappointed right now. And I thought that we can push them. I thought that we could force a game 3, and unfortunately we didn't do that.
Alex Campbell from CHGO. Greg, on the topic of the game, there was a couple shots for red cards in that first half. It was a pretty physical game, just the way it was generally called. How do you think that might have affected your guys? How do you think they responded to that? How do you hope a team responds in those situations when a game gets a little overly physical like that?
Yeah, I think we, when I evaluate the game, we didn't quit. To be down 3-0 at that stage of the game is deflating. But give the guys credit that they didn't quit, they didn't give up, they kept trying even till the end. And I'm proud of that. Not happy with the performance, but proud of the fact that the guys didn't fold. And we had to change formations. We had to put guys in different positions. We had to do what we had to do, and the guys were just rolling with it. The physicality of these games, that's what playoff games are. I need to look back on some of the plays and see, if red cards were needed in certain situations. That I'm hearing it might have been, but that is what it is.
Last question, Tim Hudson.
So if I could ask you just to reflect a little bit personally on your
Yeah.
first season back in the club game, your first season coaching a team that from Chicago where you've lived for a number of years.
Yeah.
Just what your emotions are like right now and just over the course of the year, not just tonight.
Yeah, right now is an empty feeling, right? Defeats are very difficult. But, I was talking to, to someone the other day about, how there's a spark. The city's getting engaged in what we're doing, and it's really important. Everything we're doing is try to build a winner for this city, for the city of Chicago. And, to see the fans tonight, to see the stadium filled up like it was, to hear the buzz around the city is spectacular. And we want to do better, and we want to continue to build teams that consistently make the playoffs, that compete for championships. And I think this year was a step. I know personally it's a terrible feeling right now. And, I'll need some time to really reflect on the good, the bad, and we go from there.